Hello and welcome to the Centre for Brexit Studies YouTube channel. Today we're joined by our senior fellow, Dr. Stephen McCabe. So Steve, Brussels has signalled possible compromises in a level playing field talks with UK officials cautious but optimistic that a deal can be done in intensified Brexit meetings. So will intense talks help at this stage?
Well, it depends who's involved in the intense talks. My reading of this is that, contrary to what Boris Johnson said, who he hoped to get this concluded by July, this is going to roll on through the summer, and that something will be concluded in October. So that sort of the timetable is much longer than certainly people on this side of the English Channel are anticipating. But in large measure, I think that there's a greater sense of optimism that a lot of what they want. I mean, the backdrop of all this is coronavirus, or COVID-19, if you will, and countries are experiencing unprecedented economic crisis as a result of dealing with the sort of pandemic. So it's in everyone's interest to have a deal. I know that we're going to sort of talk about in a minute that there's a view that no deal will be better than a bad deal, but the reality is that we have to sort of keep the trade lines open, particularly in manufacturing industry in particular, which has got very sort of complex supply chains. But also there's the issue of food, and as has been pointed out, that we've just about got through the current crisis. What we don't want to be doing is then facing sort of a situation come next January, whereby things are not coming from Europe, such as food and drugs, which of course we're very reliant on, as well as the components for making cars, which of course are all very important. So in that sense, in overall terms, I believe that a degree of sanity is starting to prevail. What we can expect is that sort of there'll be a lot of huffing and puffing and threatened walkouts and whatever else. We've seen this before, but of course, as we saw with sort of the withdrawal agreement last year with Boris Johnson, he has a habit of sort of making a lot of noise, but when it comes down to it, he's perfectly willing to compromise. So, and again, you know, what he's also trying to do is throw a bit of red meat at the Brexiteers, and in fact, they will be the sort of the biggest problem he's got, because I don't think he's that committed one way or another. Boris Johnson is very adept at sort of changing horses mid-race, but the Brexiteers, they would be more than happy for a no deal and to go to World Trade Organization rules, which I think would be utterly devastating.
So manufacturers are warning that a trade deal with the US could lower standards, but Britain's Trade Secretary Liz Truss insists no deal will be better than a bad deal. So what would the positives and the negatives to having a trade deal with the US be?
Well, I mean, there probably will be some sort of a trade deal, but again, the real politic of this is that they're trying to work with a president who is nothing if not isolationist, which of course he sees a virtue, but is erratic. But okay, let's get beyond what may happen in November, and even if Trump gets in for another 4 years, that you know, trade deals are for sort of you know, not just for Christmas. They're for, and then obviously not forever, but they can be mediated and altered in the future. But yeah, America works in a very different system, and because particularly food. And one of the sort of the issues is, and I've certainly seen indications that if we go for a trade deal with America, what is it that they can sell us? We don't tend to buy their cars because what they drive is different culturally to us, which is rather peculiar. We might buy their soap operas and programs, but nonetheless, it's bound to be food because they've got a very sort of big food industry. But they work on, and there's no two ways about it, lower environmental standards, and this is why the issue of chlorinated chicken. So it's not to say that it will kill you, but we have much higher standards because we adhere to the EU regulations. So there's a whole host of sort of things that sort of may come up, and I think, and if I were involved in manufacturing or in any sort of sector where you're looking both to America and to Europe. Again, they buy things from us because, of course, we do have very high standards. So are you supposed to make two versions, one for America, one for Europe? Yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of bridges to be crossed here, but people, if they are concerned, have every right to be so, because, of course, they don't want extra bureaucracy and effort to produce the things they do. And let's face it, the context we're in is that we want recovery as quick as possible. We don't want it to be sort of undermined or made any more difficult than it needs to be.
And some of the largest UK councils say they may have to declare themselves effectively bankrupt unless the government agrees to further support. That is after 5 councils said emergency spending controls could be needed due to the impacts of COVID-19. So do you think the councils will get the help that they need from the government?
Well, again, here we've got sort of the rail politic, or the sort of the politic of Westminster, butting up against the sort of the politics and economics of local government. And it's interesting, the sort of Birmingham City Council, the largest metropolitan council in Europe, is the most broke, as it were. But hey, it's not surprising if you look on the sort of the BBC, they're carrying a report about this. It's they've got a shortfall of something like 3 billion. Yeah, big number. But hey, the coronavirus as a nation is going to cost us something like 300 billion plus. So it's 1%. So that the fact is that, as is being said, they have to sort of to put extra sort of measure into mortuaries, which of course people tend to forget because we don't see that. Leisure centres have been closed, so there's no revenue coming from there. No car parks for those unlucky enough to sort of to be caught speeding. Also in the cameras in bus lanes and whatever. That people haven't been driving. So they're facing a crisis, and of course they've not furloughed their staff because of course these are local authority workers. Therefore, of course, they've got the same expenditure and lower income, and also a lot more besides. Will there be some sort of deal? Well, I would hope so. But surely, the last thing that this government wants is to have to intervene. They're sorting out problems nationally, to have to then come and run local councils, which of course is what they would have to do if a council became bankrupt. Then they have to send commissioners in to sort of to look after it. I can't say it would be another distraction which they can easily do without. And I suspect a bit like what happened in London a few weeks ago, sort of Sadiq Khan was. He was claiming that he would be bankrupt, and the money was suddenly produced because, of course, they couldn't afford to run the sort of the underground. So a lot of brinkmanship going on at the moment, and it's endemic of the sort of the continuing crisis that we've got. And dare I say it, just to say, this crisis is not over. We may have reduced the sort of the social distancing to 1 metre, but that doesn't mean that coronavirus has gone away. And in fact, my final comment is, somebody said that we may have grown tired of COVID-19, but it's not grown tired of us. It will continue until we either find a vaccine or till it hopefully dies away. But the sort of that threat still exists. So still big dangers ahead.
Thanks for joining us, Steve.